All right. Okay, should be recording. We're all good. I think last class we did end up making it all the way to the head. I'll go ahead and name this. So I'll double click the cube and name it the head. And then I made a new cube, which is just Shift A, and I selected mesh and then square. So you should have another cube already in. This cube, I believe, the head was a mirror modifier. So if I go to edit, you'll only see half of it. We're not going to apply that yet because we still only want to work with half the mesh because it'll make it faster. If anything's symmetrical, I try not to do it twice. But let's snap to front. Just keep it in the front. Make sure we're in orthographic viewed, so toggle perspective and orthographic. And you should have something like this for now. If you don't have the head, it's fine. I'm hoping some of y'all have a little bit of an idea of what the basic movement is, but I'll talk it out. So once I click on it, it's just gonna have my regular movement gizmo, which you can always just click W to get back to. I'm gonna drag it over. I'm actually gonna rotate this a little bit, so I'm gonna click E, and then I'm gonna rotate. So you should have it about, and then I'm gonna scale it a little bit down so it's about the size of the eye. Because we're gonna just be extruding this. Like I said, most of this model is just gonna be made with box modeling because I would say that's the most effective form of like low poly modeling. It's just extruding and that. We're not going to do sculpting till way later just because it's a whole different work process. It is a very fun process though, so I do say sculpting is a little bit more creative. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and select this side. I'm going to drag to the side and select the side of the cube. Remember, if you're selecting on this, it's because it's too far in front of it. You can always drag it right in front of the second mesh and then keep this cube up front. We can move all these around later. That'll just make it so you're not selecting on the image. If you don't have, you don't want to move everything around, you can always just select it in the outliner. So I'm going to go ahead and name this to eye. And I think whenever you go and here, let's go hold right click, go to face, select the edge or like the face edge. We'll snap back to front, and then we're going to command E, which is our extrude hotkey. We're going to drag it out, and then I'm going to click R to scale it. And I think I'm only going to use this little green part of the scaling, mostly because if you do the circle, it's going to actually just drag it inwards. And we're trying to keep the side preview all the same height, so I'm just going to keep it with the little green square because that only will shrink like 2 of the axes and not all 3. So I'm just going to line it kind of with what the eye is, and I'm going to command E again. And this doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to add a subdivider to this to make it even smoother. And I'm going to command E all the way down to the bottom, and I'm just going to keep resizing it. So nothing too crazy. This is pretty much all of box modeling. It's just going to be extruding. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to select this side face. And remember, if you're selecting the face behind it, just turn off wireframe mode. We don't really need it for this. Snap to the front, command E. Use the little green part of the scale tool and shrink it a little. Use W to move it. Like I said, just try to align it with the image best you can. The line art's a little thick, so it's not going to be perfect, but we're not looking for perfect, so it's fine. And let's do this. This is again I think I started modeling the eye about the last 10 minutes of the last video. Just going over what I'm saying now. But command E, click R, shrink it with the green or whatever your side button is if you're on a different axis, and then move it. Now, this is a little wonky. I did somehow end up extruding the inwards part, so what I can do, if this happens and I want this all to be even, I'm going to go to vertex mode, so I'm going to hold right click, vertex, and then I'm going to get back into x-ray mode. So I'm going to click the little x-ray toggle. So you should be right about here where you have the front view is modeled roughly, but when you go to the side view, it's all kind of warped. So I probably could actually, I can just snap to left view or right, either one, same thing, because it's in X-ray mode. And I'm going to go ahead and drag select half this mesh. And so this is a really handy tip for whenever you start modeling a lot and you're trying to get perfect edges, like especially for the mirror tool. I'm going to drag select half the mesh. I'm going to click R, and then whatever axis I want them all to flatten on, I'm just going to drag it inwards. And it flattens all of it. And you can actually make it perfect down here where you see one of these axes on the bottom on the resize is like in the negatives or not perfect. You can just click 0 and it makes it perfectly even. You can do that on this other side as well. So whenever you're using the mirror modifier like we did the head, it's always important to make sure the line that's going to be mirrored, all the vertices on there are aligned. It's very easy to move them, so that's just how you would fix it. It's not hard, but now if we go here, we go back into edit mode, I'm just going to go ahead and tweak these for a while. Just make them look good. Let's say I want to do front. Alright, so this is a really ugly eye. What I'm going to do to make it a little bit prettier is I'm going to add a subdivision. So I'm going to go into object. Actually, let's make this a little bit even. Yeah, once we got the basic shape kind of outlined, I'm going to go to object mode. And just like we do mirror mode, we're going to go to the modifier tab, which is right underneath this little orange box. It's the gear icon. We're going to click modifier and we're going to search subdivide. There's also hotkeys on your laptop you can make for subdivisions, but for this case, you don't really need to if you don't want to. Because I'm trying to teach you how like the modifiers work. I think the usual hotkeys for subdivision are like 1, 2, 3, 4, or like F1, 2, 3, 4. It's one of those. But I usually will just play with it in this menu because I don't know how much I want to add. This is really good to make smooth round shapes. And this will actually make it kind of smooth on the 3D. Now, if I want to keep this amount of subdivision, and like I said, I want to keep all these side angles flat, I can always snap to the side and then go to vertex mode. And you can see the vertex mode is like still in our original mesh. And that's because, like I said, modifiers are only previews of what the final will be. So to fix that, we're going to actually apply this modifier. So we're going to go back to object mode. When you click on the eye, you should see the modifier up here. If you do think, there's another thing, if you're selected on 2 objects at once and maybe you didn't know, like that, let's say I was selected on the eye and the head, and I added a modifier, it isn't going to show up when I just click on one object, because you have to be selected on the same exact, like select whatever you're selected on before. But if like I said, I only have this applied to the eye. If you had it applied to the head, you'd immediately notice because this would get warped. But I want to make this 2D, but I just wanted to keep this loop cut. So I go to vertex mode. Actually, wait, let's apply this object. Let's go to the gear again, and the drop down beside the camera, just click apply, and that finalizes it. So when you go back into edit mode, it should have the new vertices. You can keep it like this if you want to keep it kind of like a rounder shape, but I kind of want it to be harsh. So I'm going to go back and do that thing I just taught you, which is half selecting and dragging in, 0, or backspace. I think both of those work. But that should be good enough. I could always go in and fix these little edges. I don't really care to because it's an eye. I could always go to edge mode and drag select this edge because it got pulled inwards. Shift, double click, select all 4 sides, and then now if you don't want to do all these tweaks, you can always just add loop cuts in your initial one and just keep expanding. This is just a new edit I didn't show in the original video, so make it easier for some of y'all. I'm going to ignore the back part because I'm probably just going to delete that since it'll be inside the mesh, but that's probably good enough for the head. For the eye, I mean. So subdivide is going to be really handy whenever we're trying to make something smoother, especially in organic objects. So whenever we go into sculpting and we start from low poly to high poly, actually, we want to make something that's similar to sculpting, but we want to start from low poly to high poly. We'll make the base of the mesh, and then we'll apply a subdivider, and it will make it super, super smooth because it just kind of adds faces. But look, I'm going to make these eyelashes real quick just by, let's see what this would be. Mine's not really going to be perfect, but whatever. Select. Well, I'm going to take off wireframe. I'm going to select both of these, actually. I'm going to Command E, extrude. And then I'm going to just select those faces on the bottom and make them smaller. My interpretive is not perfect, I don't care. Go to edge. I go back into edge mode. I can always just move these around if I don't think it's on a good place. When I subdivided, yeah, I kept my edge loops, so I should be fine. Say I want to drag that there. It looks fine, honestly. I might just do another edit on this one. I think these are a little bit too far down, so I'm going to line them a little. Alright, there's my really ugly eye. We'll make it prettier later, but I want to wait a bit before I talk about smoothing. Smoothing's like going to be your best friend for making everything not ugly. If I were to go into object mode and I were to get close to this object, you can kind of see by this preview, you see all these like ridges and edges. That's from where everything has gotten. It's basically just showing you the side of your typology. So if you look at the side of this head, you can see we have some very harsh lines from where we extruded, right? Let's say we want to make all of this smooth, more professional looking without adding a lot more faces. Subdividing is the first way you can kind of make things more smooth, but the smooth preview and the applier and stuff where it's going to be the best thing to learn. I'm trying to think if I should probably, I'm going to teach you beveling before I do that. Smoothing is my favorite part of Blender, I think. So you'll probably like that the most. It's very similar to UVing, except we won't actually unfold the faces. It's like we're going to make cuts from where we're going to select their edges we want to harden, and we can pretty much just do that. But let's do a very easy bevel. If I go to, actually, I'm probably going to apply this mirror modifier real quick, just because a beveling is, I can double select. So I'm going to go to the head, apply mirror, and when I go to edit mode, it should show you it. And don't worry if you feel like you have like a gap here because your vertices weren't perfectly aligned. There's ways to merge vertices and stuff later. You can merge by distance, just in case you make like overlapping vertices. But for now, just select your edges. Everywhere we want to bevel. Bevel is just like, it basically I don't know how to describe it besides showing you, but it makes like a crease. I don't know how to. I don't know. It's like, you'll see. So if I go to modifiers, I think you can do it through this. Yeah, you can add it through modifiers if you want to have like a way to undo it. You can also just Command B. This is through modifiers. I did it just because I can undo through modifiers, and then whenever you're on it, you can add them on a segments. This is the only thing about the modifiers is it's going to add it to the whole object. If I only wanted to add it to the front and not the back, or like maybe the inside, then I'm not going to add it through the modifier. Redo that. You can just, also if you don't like the modifiers, just click the X, it'll delete it. I'm going to Command or Control B, whatever each one works. And then I just drag a little bit. It'll show you a bit of a preview before you select anything. So I do it about here. I left click to finalize it, and it's going to bring up my bevel box. In the bevel box, you can edit the bevel. You can edit where the width was if it kind of did a weird way. You can kind of see if you do the width too much, it's going to start going inside of each other, and that's not good. So Command B and then dragging a little bit, and then I'm just going to go ahead and add another segment. The segment's basically going to add a loop cut in between the two. So I guess the best way to describe beveling is loop cutting with precision. So just go ahead and add, I'm trying to think of what the word is. My teacher always says this. A supporting loop cut, I think, is maybe the best version to say. Sometimes with certain meshes, you really want the edges to be like soft, so then you'll add a bevel on it. And you don't have to make them as extreme as I did. Sometimes you'll just make them really small, and it'll just make the edges way less harsh. Because if you keep it as it is, it's just kind of like basically a knife. Like you're just gonna cut yourself on that edge. So I try to apply bevels for everything. I guess for this mesh, I know I showed you just how to do the front. I could just bevel the whole thing, because oopsies, gotta be in edit mode. There we go. I'm gonna be an X-ray, Command B, or select all of it, and then Control B. See, now that's the issue with that, is that if I don't go in modifier mode, it's trying to bevel all of my lines. Let's not do that. So if I stay in object, I can always just bevel the whole object through this. Because the harder way is just to go ahead and manually select all the lines you want to bevel. I think this one probably does bevel all the lines too, or at least the side lines, which I'm okay with because I'm going to make these smoother anyways. I just don't want it to duplicate the inside lines. So if I go to apply this bevel, let's add one more loop cut. Let's make it a little bit bigger. That should be about fine. If I apply, let's go into object mode, apply, see what it does. So yeah, this bevel only added it to the rims. If you select all of the edges and Control B, it will add it to the actual lines on the inside as well, which I don't want to do. But yeah, that beveled the whole object. So beveling is kind of like, it depends on where you want to add your extra loop cuts and the goal for it. I can tell whenever I did my modifier, this is weird. Here's one of those glitches I mentioned or one of those issues whenever you're applying mirror modifiers. I think there's a face that's inside my mesh, but when I applied the mirror modifier, if I delete this whole mesh, right, this whole side. Oopsies, hold up. Let's do half select all my mesh. Click X. I left the faces on the inside when I mirrored it. So it actually mirrored those inside faces, which is not good. I don't want those. It's just extra faces. It doesn't really matter in the long run, but if you're trying to optimize stuff, it's kind of like what's going on inside this object. So it's not even showing they're there because they're probably facing, when I mirrored them, they was on this side of that mesh and I deleted the other side. So whenever faces only really show you one direction. So whenever you see the back of a face, it's just going to be transparent. You'll be able to see what it actually looks like in the outliner. So you'll see like, this edge loop here, which shouldn't exist. I can always just select them, shift select. Let's go out of this. And like I said, it's see-through now, so you have to be very careful when selecting it. I know it's there. I might have deleted this one actually. We'll see. If I go X. Yeah, when I X'd that out, there was no top line, so the second one was already gone. But this one was still there. So that's how I would fix something simple like that. Now, there's another thing I want to teach you real quick for people who did not align their vertices in the middle. So these lines here, if you don't drag select and then, scale it inwards to make a perfect line, whenever you mirror it, it's going to create little holes. So I'm going to show you an example of that, which is like this. Right? And I go to object mode. I mirror my object. There's a hole inside. And let's say I didn't catch that because there's a really small hole and I just went ahead and clicked apply. Well, there's a few things we can do to fix this, but the name one to fix for little tiny issues is just to select the two edges you want to be together. And then you can probably do it through this, but the fastest way I find for little stuff like this is just FN3, or I guess for you it might just be F3. I have to do FN3 because my F keys aren't there. So I have to use the function 3 to do it. But for you, it should just be F3. It should bring up a search menu. And I'm just going to search up merge. And I think you could just do the regular merge and it should work. Yeah, okay, great. So F3, merge, and then it'll pop up the little menu here, which is like, I can merge it at the cursor, which is where my cursor currently is, or at center, which I want to do at the center, which will basically just bring them as close as you can. And it's going to merge them at center. Really handy for little issues you find, or if you're trying to combine two meshes. Now let's say if I have a duplicate vertice that's sort of inside another, if I go and add, let's do edge, and then I'm gonna just F3 subdivide. Say I subdivided this edge, because you can subdivide, like I said, most of these things I'm teaching you, beveling, subdividing, dividing, can apply to almost any part of Blender, so you can do it to an edge, to a vertice, all that. But now I have two vertices here, right? And let's say this vertice somehow got overlapped and they're inside each other. It'll cause an issue when UVing, and you'll find out how ugly your meshes are whenever you end up going to UV. So I'm going to make kind of probably a little comprehensive video on this, because this is just basically perfecting modeling, kind of getting your mesh ready before you're ending. But the issue whenever you have a duplicating vertice like this is that, for one, both of these faces are going to be n-gons now, because having another face, another vertice, even if you can't see it, makes this face here have five vertices. And we don't like n-gons at all, because they will ruin our meshes. So we're going to try and want to combine these and make them into a quad, which is just a four-sided face. So if I were to select those two overlapping vertices, I don't even think you have to, let's say I want to do it to the whole mesh actually. If I search for n-gons and I find out, these two faces have n-gons, but I don't see the vertices anywhere, then we're going to end up merging them by distance. But first, let's just show how I would do that. So let's say I didn't know that vertice was there, right? And I'm just like, what's going on? For one, let's go in X-ray mode. Let's select all of these in edit view. And I think it's search by faces. It's in the doc for the actual name. It's called something else in Maya, but search for command if faces. Yeah, so I have a little tip I'm about to teach you here, which is to check for ingons. So if you're about to go UV, and when you're UVing, there's some weird funky thing happening with the mesh, like there's an overlapping vertice or there's an ingon, and it's driving you nuts, and you're like, spending 3 hours trying to figure out whatever glitch is happening. Well, you can go for one and just check for ingons, which is just to select all your faces, and then hit F3, which is our search feature, and faces by sides. And this is actually how you find quads or any sort of faces. It'll show you where they are. So F3, faces by sides, and right now it's just set to quads. So it's showing you all our 4.1s. But if I do 5 greater than, let's do this again. I might have got to be in face mode. Let's see. F3, faces by sides. Well, it should pop up. What preview I'm in to not? I might have to actually click enter. I don't know. Usually it'll auto, yeah, there it goes. If I click it, for some reason it's taking a minute to load, but maybe you have to click enter to actually make it work. But it shows me that now I only have 2 faces that are not quads, and it's these 2 because I have an overlapping vertice. And so if I were to, drag these out or something, this is whenever I would start investigating that face and be like, where's the duplicating topology? And let's say I eventually find out by dragging this around, oh, there's 2 vertices there. I'm just going to drag select these. And I can do what I just taught you, which is just F3, merge, and then at center. But there's another way to do it for if you have overlapping vertices on your whole mesh. And that's going to be like this. So I think I have it on the dock as well. It's by center. I think I might have was about to write it and then never did, which is great. Good job, me. I guess I don't have that written there. Bullshit. Anyways, let me show you how to do it on this because I'm pretty sure I remember how to do it. If I don't, I can just check. But it's a setting called merge by distance. Mesh. We'll see if we can find it in this. Yeah. So if you actually go to mesh, you can. This is actually how you do it without doing F3. You just go to one of these little menus up here, mesh, merge, and then by distance. And it tells you down here that it removed 4 vertices. So it actually collapsed some of those hidden vertices I didn't need to see. Now, if you raise the distance, it's going to start messing up your mesh. I would try not to because it's going to be like all fickly. But let's just go ahead and do it for the base of it. Mesh, merge. All right. There it goes, yeah. 0.03. That's good. That seems fine. Whenever we go to UV, we'll find all the issues with stuff, and sometimes we can correct them there. But for the most part, I think we're going to be good. Let's see. Let's go straight into smoothing now, because I kind of taught you a bit about the modifiers. Subdividing, mirroring, merging, that's kind of the basis of the last things I need to teach you. That's how you would finalize a mesh. It's just to make sure everything's in ingon and doesn't have ingons. So whenever you finish a model, I would always just select the whole model or the whole mesh and search by sides, just because you really do not like ingons, and that's how you prevent them or fix them after they're made. But let's do the smoothing preview. I really, really enjoy smoothing whenever I'm working on a complicated mesh. So let's go to object mode. And like I said, in object mode, you should see all these ridges on the side, right? It's just going to show you all like the harsher typology. If you hold right click, so our mini menu where we do all our editing stuff, you're going to see these 2 options. It's going to be shade flat and shade smooth. smooth. So let's go ahead and while I'm in object mode, click shade smooth. It should apply it to your whole mesh. And now it's like a smooth as can be. You can make it even more smooth by, going and making this typology even better, but I don't really care about that. I think this will be fine. Now let's say I want to keep one of these harsh edges, right? This is the best part about smoothing. So if you go to edge mode, right, you select one of the edges you want to make harsh. So let's say I want to make, I'm trying to think on this body, something that will loop select. My beveling has moved all my stuff. There it goes. If I just select one of these edge loops, or I could manually select that middle one, which I don't want to do. I can go to edges, should be up top, or you can F3 this, either way. And then you'll see there's a mark seam and clear seam. That's going to be used for UVing. What we're going to do is mark sharp, so it's going to be right underneath it. And when you leave object mode, it should now, let's hide this, have a hardened edge here. And that's how you would go through every kind of like organic mesh or like try to smooth thing out. You literally just apply the smooth view, and then you'd go in manually and pretty much apply any of the edges you want to keep harsh. Also, what I just did with that image pane, for people who didn't watch the video, can you not do that? What are you doing? All right. Is I just clicked H. If you're on any sort of object you want to hide temporarily, you can literally just click H and it will hide it. It basically just makes it go to sleep. That's only something I do for temporary stuff. I'll usually turn it back on in this. I think there's actually a hotkey to unhide everything. Yeah, if you click Alt Hide and you can't find something in your outliner, Alt Hide will unhide anything you have hidden. So, but yeah, that should be about it for the smoothing stuff. This is going to be kind of up to preference on how you model. Let's say I really think this is ugly, so I'm going to go to object mode again. I'm going to smooth it. Oh wow, so smooth. But I still want, an outline. So I'm going to select the loop cut, and I'm going to go to edge, mark sharp. Now I got this little thing going on. I'm going to move this eye back. It's a really ugly mesh, but whatever. I think I might have showed you last class on how I would mirror this eye. There's a lot of things you can do with modifiers, but if you were to go to a modifier, and let's say we just want to mirror an object based on an object, we would go to mirror object, like once we apply the mirror modifier like we did before, we'd go to mirror object here, and you'd see this little eyedropper tool. Just select, oopsie, hold up. Let me hide my image real quick. Select the object you want. So you can do it through the outliner, which is just this little box here, or you can just use the eyedropper and find it in your actual outliner. And it will mirror it based off the center of mass on an object. So that's really handy whenever you're doing like arms on a character. Let's say I have like just a shoulder and an arm made, and I want to mirror it on the other side of the chest. Well, then I would just select it either through this or through that, and it'll mirror modifier like that. And right now, you might have noticed the lighting's different on it. That's most likely because it's not finalized. Like I said, every modifier we have, we'll have to apply it here by going into object mode and apply. And so you should have a little bit of a ugly head going on. Kind of looks like an ant. But if you notice up here, there's some sort of glitch going on with the smooth preview. This is not uncommon, especially when you get into organic or complicated meshes. A lot of that's either because of duplicating vertices or because you don't have your UV made. So this one, I would say, is partially because we have this extra line here. This was probably caused by being really lazy and doing the modifier bevel instead of just hand selecting all the places I want to bevel. Let's say I wanted to get rid of these two lines here. I could click X, which would just delete the whole thing, which I don't want to do. But I'd most likely click F3, which is that search thing, and then look up dissolve by edges. So this will dissolve an edge without messing up your mesh. So let's say you add a loop cut that you then didn't like. Well, you can't delete it the normal way, so you're just gonna F3 and then dissolve by edges, and that'll basically just get rid of it, and it will immediately connect, you know, these two, the lines it was connected to. So very simple on how to fix small things like that. If I go to object mode, it's still showing something weird. I think it's because of this. So whenever I went to merge by distance, I think it said it removed 4 vertices, when in reality I only had 2 that I needed to move. So most likely merged something oddly, or the beveling probably caused this as well. Beveling will do this thing sometimes. We'll end up making tries just because it cannot completely compute all the sides. So these 2 vertices that I think I just want to connect. It'll make a try here. But the issue is that when I beveled, I think this right here, this face that I'm selected on or like looking at, is another addon. So quick fix, F3, merge at center. I want to see if that fixes it. It does. So that's one of the issues with it. There was an addon. It made my smooth preview all messed up. Let's say I didn't want to fix that this side. Maybe I did a lot of work on something that's going on here. Just gonna go to faces, and then X. I'm gonna just use another mirror modifier. Remember, every time you apply a mirror modifier, you can always kind of delete half the mesh and reapply it, so it's never a big deal. But now my smooth preview is fixed, right? There's going to be no weird shadow glitches. Sometimes you'll have a shadow glitch that has nothing to do with an addon, it's just the typology itself. And that will sometimes get fixed when you go into UVing and you do materials. So later on the pipeline, it won't be scuffed looking. But in this like basic kind of like clay preview, it's going to look a little odd. I try to get rid of all my issues up front just to make it easier down the line. I'm going to go ahead and model the eyebrow real quick, because this is about all the stuff I think I need to teach you. Let me think. Dissolving edges, merging at center. Those are going to be 2 things you're going to need to use whenever fixing mistakes. Let's say you find a mistake way later on the line, and you're like, well, I need to delete this edge. Dissolving an edge or dissolving a vertex is kind of what you're going to need to do. Because if you try to delete it the normal way, then you're, oh, this is what I was thinking of. Okay, great. Let's say I, for whatever reason, am box modeling, right? And I do something funky. Let me think of something, a way to do this. If I show this, you can bridge edge loops. So if you were to, let's say I was modeling this antenna by just manually extruding faces and not like actual meshes, which I would never do that because it's kind of stupid. But there are some people who prefer it when making like cars or certain things. They'll just do it by faces. So let's do a Shift A. Shift A. Let's just add a plane and not a cube. I believe this plane you can only see from the top view, but object mode. I don't ever use these. Hide. Well, that don't work. Shift A. Okay, yeah, Shift A and then mesh plane. So I have this plane. I want this to be perfect, so I'm going to do 90. It's perfectly standing up. All right, let's shrink it a little bit. I should be about done here, but I'm going to show you if I end up wanting to. The last thing I really need to teach you, besides that things I just taught you, this I think will be pretty much everything, is let's say I select an edge, right? And I Control E to extrude it. And let's say I have a duplicate version of this somewhere else, so, or you know what, I'm not going to duplicate it because I have to join it, but let's say I have some loop cuts. So Where is my mini menu? You can see that I wanted to add loop cuts, but my thing was collapsed. So just make sure you click the little arrow there. It'll always be there if you're in edit mode. I'm gonna add a fake thing that I'm gonna fix because this is gonna be handy if you're messing with your typology. So let's say I deleted this inside mesh and I have a hole. There's one way to fix it. The first way I'd fix something like this, which is like a missing vertice, and that would be to select all the edges, F3, and then fill. Mesh fill is basically just going to fill the hole. It might add like a try here, but there is different ways you can fill. So if you go and play with the let me do this. I have this edge selected, F3, fill. Those fill holes like mesh fill holes here, and those grid fill, which will, if you're selecting multiple vertices and not just one quad, it'll actually grid fill some like fake typology, but it's not always the best way to do it. I prefer just to do a flat fill and then I'm just going to delete this edge because I don't want it. So if I go F3, I'm going to dissolve edges. It should already be my quick menus. The other way is going to be bridging. So let's say I have something extruded, right? I have these two command extruded, and I have this hole, but the edge of it isn't a full hole, right? So I can't, select this and then fill hole because, well, it's not a hole. It's just an open edge. The best way I would do it would be F3 and then bridge. So if I look up bridge, I think that might be in some of these too. I don't ever find it over here, but fill hole and bridge are going to be how you fill in or like connect typology. So yeah, that's how I'd bridge it. And it should, since both of those edges had all the vertices selected, it automatically makes a line here that I don't believe shouldn't be duplicated. Yeah, no, it should be fine. So filling holes and bridging edge loops are how you kind of fix little issues like that. I know right now these examples aren't very practical, but it'll be very handy for whenever you're doing more complicated things like a human or something. So I was just going to show you all that in case you're doing something funky and that happens. I think that's about it for us. We're going to let the Unity people set up. I know I have this recorded, but I don't know if I'm going to keep it this long because everything I just taught you I think can actually be shortened down to pretty much how to fill holes, bridge edge loops, merging, and then merging by distance. And then the finalized of how you're actually making a mesh is just going to be checking for n-gons and then applying a smooth modifier or a smooth preview. But yeah, if you have any questions, add us in the Discord. I'll probably release another video of this if y'all want to kind of a refresher. So everything I said probably is in here. So it has some tips and tricks like inverting selections. We're not going to do boolean. Fixing messy typology. There's all these little tips and tricks, like specifically the checking for n-gons here. And then I have the add image, the subdivision, have subdivision here. But yeah, most of that should be in there if you need a refresher. That's just something that's possible when modeling. A lot of that's going to be easier to understand whenever we're getting into some complicated meshes, but this is something kind of simple. Keep it simple. So next week, the idea is to have at least part of eDoc finished. It's going to be up to you how much you want to finish it. If you want to do just the face, you can do just the face. We'll just do probably in the tutorial, I'll probably just finish out the face. I'll do the eyebrows, his little headband, and this. If you want to do the whole body, you can do the whole body too. But then after next week, which is just going to be a work day, we'll be here just helping y'all model some individual stuff. Y'all have questions. And then the week after is when we'll get into UVing. So we'll actually jump in and we'll UV the head. And what is this doing? Oh, I know why. When I tried to add that plane, it added something weird, but I can fix it later. That should be as simple as that. I know I have this little mic. I could always just cut down what I was saying, but I don't know if I want to do that. Is next week, do y'all think, going to be enough time to finish the head, and then the week after get into UVing? Y'all ready for that? If y'all at least have the base of modeling down, y'all can make a head and do some basic edits. I think most of modeling, I think we've probably covered by now. I know there's a few tips and tricks in here that you can always find out, like inverting selections and whatever. Most stuff, if you ever get stumped on something like, oh, I have this issue, I want to fix it, you can probably find a video on it. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it at that. Keep it at that. Hopefully that was simple enough. It's a little everywhere, but that's kind of how it is in modeling sometimes.